Hi, everybody, and welcome to the True Crime Therapist podcast. I'm also going to upload this on YouTube because we're filming this live as well. My guest today is a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, Consolee Nishimwe. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
It's really a privilege. I know we spoke before today. I was in 1994, I was a young woman, a teenager. And when I had heard about what happened, it affected me very deeply. So several years ago, I actually traveled to Rwanda
Mm.
to study the genocide and visit the memorial site. So it's a real honor and a privilege to be able to speak to you today.
Oh, thank you so much for visiting. It really means a lot to hear that. Yeah. The
I hope
same
more people do.
generation.
Yes, I hope more people do too. Um,
Yeah.
For our listeners that don't know what the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis means, can you help our listeners understand it and then also, tell your story?
Mhm. Thank you again so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and thank you for visiting Rwanda. Hope you had a great time there. Um, yes, for those who don't understand what happened or historically, um, about Rwanda. So briefly, Rwanda is located in the East Central Africa. It's we call it a country of thousand hills. So it's a very small country. It's like a size of Maryland. So um we're almost like 13 million. I don't know. I didn't check yet where we are right now as a population. So before colonial era, we had Tutsis and Hutus and Twa were social classes. So and then when the Belgian came in Rwanda, so they had to change everything into ethnic groups. So what was social classes, it turned into ethnic groups. And then they issue ID card. So that ID card, so they mentioned if you're a Tutsi and Hutu and Twa, so that means whatever you would mention at that time. So, and because they had to measure your nose, your height, and so that's how they had to say Tutsis look a certain way, Hutus look a certain way, and Twa. So, and then whoever was placed on Tutsi as an ethnic Tutsi, you were given, whatever ID card, because on that ID card, it had Tutsis and Hutus and Twa. So whatever you were mentioned, that's where your ID will show who you are. So, and at that time, what was a good thing about social classes, people knew how to move from one class to another. People were living in a normal life. It was really not a problem. So then when it turned into ethnic groups, everything changed now. So they had to do what they call divide and conquer. So, and then by the time they left the country already, they have divided people. So they made the Hutu as a Hutu majority by the time when they left the country. So the Hutu were majority at that time, they started persecuting Tutsis. So many Tutsis, since 1959, they left the country. So in many neighboring countries, like Congo, like Burundi, Tanzania, many of the neighboring countries, because they were being persecuted. So, and at that time, with the majority Hutus, so who were in the power at that time. So, and there were many of them who were killed, but not as many as what happened in 1994. But it was that's when also the persecution and the dehumanization and all discrimination started in those early times before I was born. So and I found myself that when I was born, around the time I was born, that my family was a Tutsi. So because they were given that ID card as a Tutsi. So, and that's how I found out I was a Tutsi. But of course, I learned that later on in my life. So, and then because of the propaganda, of the hatred that kept happening throughout the years, even way before I was born. But in 1994, the reason why the genocide was able to happen is because of the extreme of the propaganda of hatred against the Tutsi. So, and sometime later, there was a radio, RTLM radio, which was created to spread the hatred against the Tutsi throughout the country. So that RTLM radio, which was used as a propaganda. There was some newspaper, Kangurai, which was one of them, which was used because a lot of people listen to the radio. So, and it was easy to dehumanize Tutsis, whatever they used to call Tutsis, cockroaches and snakes, so that they have to go back where they came from, Ethiopia, which was not true because they're Rwandans, we're Rwandans, so that was a part of the propaganda too, so tool. So, and then in 1994, already they planned a genocide to exterminate the minority Tutsis. So, and they already had machetes and other weapons, you know, in the country. So, and that's why after the plane of the former president, Habyarimana, who was the president at that time, when his plane was shut down, they used it as a way of saying, oh, you know, Tutsis murdered him, but already the genocide was already planned. So, which was because throughout the country on April 7th, they started murdering Tutsis throughout the country. So, and they say that it was one of the worst genocide in history in a short period of time. And they said it was one of the preventable genocide. So unfortunately, more than 1 million Tutsis were murdered during that period in 1994, genocide against the Tutsi. So yeah, briefly, but there are a lot of history around the world, throughout the years, how it happened. But briefly, that's what led to 1994 genocide against the Tutsi.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. And I know we're in the 30th anniversary right now of it here, 2024 at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
You know what struck me when I visited the museum, and it's the theme of mistrust and fear, right? Through the propaganda. Like there was so much, it seemed like there was so much mistrust and fear that people then started to feel like they had to, like, neighbors became enemies.
Yeah. It was it shows that how words have power and the fear they created in people. These were our neighbors. People, we lived next door to each other. We went to the same, we did everything together. So, but they made them feel like we are enemies. And when we're not enemies, we're just, and it shows you how propaganda of hatred can lead to. So, yeah, if it's not stopped early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If false beliefs. So it's it was all false beliefs. So if these false beliefs are allowed to continue, it became poison and toxic, a toxic environment for everyone, right? That was my biggest thing that I took away too. One of the biggest things. And so now we have this situation where there's an escalation in violence. Can you tell everyone what your personal story was?
When I found, of course, around that time in 1994, I was 14 years old. I was a teenager, and I was living in the western province of the country, in Kibuye, the place called Rurengera. It's a small town in a small village. I'm not a city girl. And now I'm a city girl because I live in New York City. So yeah, so but I was very fortunate. To be born in a family of two amazing parents. My two parents were teachers, and all of them, I found that all of us were on my mom's side, on my dad's side, both of them were Tutsis. So that means I'm a Tutsi. So all of them. And the way I found out, I was when I was very young. Of course, when I was growing up with my siblings and who were five, so all of us five children. I was the oldest in my family, and my other siblings were my sister was the second, and my three younger brothers who were younger. And the youngest was 16 months old during the genocide against the Tutsi. So we were young. So we were young kids and happy living with our parents. And thankfully, we had a beautiful family. My parents were very good parents, loving each other, very affectionate parents. So I grew up in the warmth of love and affection. And but at the same time, outside of our home, there was a discrimination against the Tutsi. So, but they made sure I felt the love and affection. And I was also, very fortunate. Many of our family members were now living far away from us. So my grandparents, my aunts, my cousins. So like any other kid in a village, you look forward to going to your grandmother to eat, her favorite, the favorite meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
To kind of spoil you. So you need, to go to your favorite uncle or cousin, any aunt, so to spoil you. So at least I had those many in my family that I looked forward every day, many times during vacation to go to. So, and I would say that before the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, I was very fortunate to be living in that kind of warmth with my family. So, and extended family. So, and fortunately, everything changed. So where I had to go into hiding for 3 months, and found myself that, going through and see unimaginable horrors at that early stages of my life that I would never imagine that I was going to see. So, and even to lose people that I loved so much, and everything was gone. Everything changed. So, and now my father was murdered. My three younger brothers were murdered, who were very little, age 9, 7, and 16 months old. Many of my family members on both sides were murdered. And if you read in the book, you could see almost everybody on my dad's side was murdered. So, and now, so my mom's side, luckily, there were very few people who survived. So, and I had to go through so many horrible things during the 3 months in hiding. So where I had to see people were neighbors, doing horrible things to us instead of helping whenever we needed help. They would call killers on us, or anytime we had to go through the bushes and hiding in the bushes, which was not very easy because it was a rainy season. And during the April, it was a rainy season. So because they had to have roadblocks everywhere at that time during the genocide, and in order for you to get to a home, you had to go through the bushes. You hide in the bushes, and you can knock on door of some Hutu who were kind enough to open the door for you to hide you in their home. But not every Hutu committed the genocide. There were some of them who were kind enough to help. So that's why some of us are alive, because there's some people who didn't allow themselves to commit the genocide. So, but also there are some instances where someone will hide you, but they will kill somebody else. So I always have those conversations with fellow survivors that, it's, someone will hide you, but then they will kill somebody else. So, and sometimes it's hard to even comprehend how, that happens. So, and I think for me, I find it that it's a miracle. So for that person to never kill you, because at least you are able to talk about it, able to testify what happened. So, and during the 3 months, because of where we lived in a village, as you can see, also read in the book, so I had to, go escape a lot of many instances where I was going to be killed. So, and also, in a way, my father was murdered, even though I didn't see it with my own eyes. A lot of times, many Tutsis were killed. They would use machetes and clubs to murder them. So, and which that's how my father was murdered. So, and my three younger brothers also were murdered with machetes, and and they threw their bodies in a septic tank of our home, already destroyed home, because our homes were completely destroyed. Every part of everything we had was gone. So many Tutsis' homes were completely destroyed. So, and um, and during that period, because rape was used as a weapon, a lot of women and girls were horribly tortured in the most horrible way. So some of them were, raped by so many killers and kept them. Others were killed right away. Others were, they used even the weapons they were using to kill, to harm their body, even in private parts, which when you read about it, it's, like in some books people have written about rape.
Right.
It's horrifying. It's very horrifying how it happened. So, and unfortunately also, myself, I was raped by a neighbor who found us while we're hiding. And um, it was the most hardest thing that I had to go through during the genocide. As a young girl, 14-year-old, and throughout the months of being hiding, and then later on, being dragged and beaten and raped. It was I never imagined that was going to happen to me, but unfortunately that happened to many young girls and women. So, and it was one of the worst and painful things that I had to go through during the genocide. Yeah, as a young girl. So yeah. And later on, I found out I was HIV positive as a result of rape. Like many women and girls who were tortured and raped. So that they had to find the consequences of what they had gone through. Now, for me, it was one of the hardest thing to live with. In my life, that I had to live with something that reminds me of what I have gone through. So, yeah. And I'm not the only person. Many women and girls live with the consequences of what they have gone through. So, and not only that, losing the people you love. It was hard to live with everything, like the pain of losing people and the pain of what you have gone through. So, and we're many of us who live with that. So, and my story is a long story, but it's so many things have happened, and for me to survive is because the Tutsis were in exile, stopped the genocide, the RPF. So that's why we're able to survive. So the genocide lasted for 3 months, from April to July. So yeah, April 7th to July 4th, 1994. So, and that's the reason why we're able to survive and be able to be here. And but at the same time, we had to live with the consequences and the trauma, and which will last for a long time for a lot of them. So even though it's 30 years, but the consequences are still alive in many people's, mind, and the trauma is still alive, the PTSD and all kinds of, and it's very normal to go through that. So, and but for me, one of the things that I feel like has helped me is to talk about it and being able to share the story with you and writing a book about it. So which helped me to relieve all the painful experiences that I never thought I was going to talk about. So, and thank you. That's briefly of experiences of the genocide, but there are many, many things that happened. So yeah, during that period in hiding. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you for sharing your
Mhm.
story. And
Thank you.
it's hard for my brain to imagine the fear and the uncertainty
Mhm.
and the horror of it all. And I know you did mention your book, and I want to hold it up here, tested to the
Thank you.
limit.
Mhm.
For people listening, I can put a link in the show notes. But
Mhm.
your book goes into much more detail
Mhm.
about the daily struggle, which, like I said, I was reading it and I was trying to imagine what it was like for you going, trying to find safety. And I couldn't even, it was hard to even imagine how scared that you must have felt.
Mhm. It
Yeah.
was, it was not very easy as a young girl, and to see, the horrors of the genocide every day. You had to evade being killed, or all the things you had to face every day, not knowing next day you're going to survive. So I couldn't imagine that what was happening. So it was one of the horrifying moments in my life that I would never wish for anybody to go through. So that's why I feel like whenever I hear a genocide or war anywhere in the world, it horrifies me. Yeah, it makes me sad, because I know how, how painful and how terrible it is, to people. So, and to relieve every painful, every experience that I've gone through, it was not easy. It was hard, but at the same time, I needed to be able to release, to be able to begin my healing journey. So, and that was my book was therapy for me. It was cathartic for me. It was
Wow.
therapeutic for me. Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
be able to write it. Yeah. And it
It's
is so
and
inspirational.
sometimes you cannot find in words to describe what you have gone through, but when you write about it, it's helpful to you. So yeah.
When when you were in it in the beginning, like obviously there's a million questions I want to ask you or kind of get
Yeah.
into, but just to start in the beginning, like, so when you're in hiding and
Mhm.
you're really scared, can you talk about, do you remember how, and I know you were young too, right? Because
Mhm.
we might cope differently when we
Yeah.
come older and reflect, but if you could go
Mhm.
back to that 14-year-old girl for a minute, how were
Mhm.
you coping each day not knowing what was going to happen to you?
It was it was very hard, as a 14-year-old. Um it was very hard for me to think what I was seeing, what was happening to me, and what was going to happen next day. So, and one of the things that helped the most for me growing up as a Christian, so I was praying. So because I was taught to pray. So, and for me, um, and my mom, who kept reminding us to pray. So, and for me, I used to pray every day. Whatever it was, I would just pray and say, God, help me, even if I die. So I believe that when you die, you go to heaven. So, and for me, I think for me, pray, always having that kind of, reminder in your head, pray, pray. I think that helped a bit to kind of cope. But at the same time, it was hard because I was a young 14-year-old, and everything was very traumatic. So, but at the same time, uh, I guess because I was with my mom and my siblings, and and it was and to see the horrors, it was, my brain could not even understand what was happening to me. So even though it was happening to me, but at the same time, I one of the things that helped him the most is just, you know, to pray. If I die, I will go to heaven. So, but at the same time, I never, you know, I used to think next day I will die. Next day, maybe someone will kill me. Something will happen, I will die. So I never thought I was going to survive. I never imagined I was going to survive.
But you're anticipating each day that you were going to, it's almost like, I can't say that you made peace with it, but you were telling yourself like, okay, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So God, or, you know, please bring me to a safe place.
Yeah, at least, you know, if I go to a safe place, because already many people are being murdered. My father was murdered. My three brothers already were murdered. By the time my brothers were murdered and everything that happened to me and the rape, so I thought maybe it's better for me to die. So, but die, you know, and that's why I prayed. So maybe it's better I go. So instead of keeping, you know, going through the pain and the suffering. So I think for every survivor, you go through a lot in your head. Maybe it depends of also the age you were at that time. So I was still young. I was young, very young to even have my brain to even think a lot of, you know, or even think of what was happening, because it was too extreme in my brain to even understand even why people are behaving the way they are behaving, why I'm being, you know, treated that way, and why we are being treated that way, why we are being tortured in that kind of way. So my brain could not even like um, think how far people can go to do such extreme. When I was used to obey and respect as a kid and love everybody, but now people are doing the opposite of what I knew when I was a kid. So
Yeah, it's interesting what you just said, because that when you know you're an innocent 14-year-old girl, you're a good person,
yeah.
you come from a family that's full of love,
Mhm.
never hurt anyone. And
Yeah.
it's this like, how can there be these people that want to kill me? They want to hurt me, they want to kill me, they want to torture me, they want to rape me, and I have
Mhm.
done nothing wrong.
Right.
Done nothing to them. And
Yeah.
that's the part for me too, why I actually needed to go to Rwanda, because I'm like,
Mm.
I
Mm.
cannot, it was hard for me to hold that space right there and understand that,
Mm.
to ask how people could get
Mhm.
to that point of violence, to want to commit so
Mhm.
much harm to someone that's never brought any harm to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows you, to me, even though I've gone through that, even now myself, I couldn't believe how it got to that extreme. So because we have a beautiful culture, as you can, I'm sure you have been around and you have seen, you know, how people are. We're very social, a culture that everybody is very social. We love people. We love to have people,
Yeah.
and to show how the hatred was being taught to a point where people can go to that extreme. It's horrifying. So, and that's why you know, the Rwanda is making sure they are educating about it. They have memorials so that people can now go that far again. So, to that extent, because we realize that it's possible, and it can be possible anywhere in the world if you're not very careful what, you know, what people are teaching around. And if you're teaching about it, definitely it can lead to something bad. So that's how scary it is. Yeah.
Yeah, which is hopefully one of the things that comes out of us doing this, right? Is
Mhm.
for people to be mindful and aware
Mhm.
of how extreme
Mhm.
beliefs can be taken to such
Mhm.
levels of violence.
Yeah.
Um, and I know we want to talk about the rape, right?
Yeah.
So I had some statistics I had wrote down from the United Nations that approximately 100,000 to 250,000
Yeah.
women were raped. And that's only the ones that have come forward.
Yeah.
1 in 4 Hutu adult men organized or committed one act of violence
Mm.
during the 1994 genocide.
Mm.
So I mean, I look at rape, I'm speaking as a therapist. It is a form of death, because for a woman that's been
Mhm,
raped,
mhm,
there's parts of her that die, and we can recover, and we can find new ways to turn the trauma
mhm,
into transform the trauma into some sort of meaning, but
mhm.
there's still something inside of us that's quite never the same. And
Yeah,
also I'm a rape survivor myself.
I'm
uh,
sorry. Mm.
and so um let's talk about rape, right? um can you describe for listeners, like, the pro after the rape, the psychological impact or the triggers, or what that experience was like for you?
You know, I come in a culture where we don't necessarily talk, we didn't know how to even talk about pain in general. And and now to talk about extreme pain like rape, which was not very, easy to even be able to go through. It was very extreme to a lot of women and girls. So for me, um, it was a lot to carry as a young 14-year-old in your body. But then now you had to find the ways to live, but at the same time, coping mechanism, it was not it was not easy to find ways to cope with what you have gone through, because I was carrying a lot of things, pain, and something that I could not even find the words to describe what I was feeling inside. So, and I would have nightmares. I would have all kinds of images, going through my mind. But at the same time, I'll push myself to leave, which was like for everyone, you have to go back to a normal life, and which was for everyone. But at the same time, whenever you're alone, you go through a lot of internal, pain that you cannot even find words to describe what you're feeling. So, and at the same time, you can't talk about it because also the stigma and the pain, eh, you know, and for a lot of women to talk about rape was not easy for a lot of women. So, and it was very extreme. I went through a lot of nightmares. I went through a lot of you know, a lot of pain as a young girl because my innocence was taken away from me. So, and um, and it was painful to think of what my body had have gone through. So, and many years I lived with so much not being able to find the words to describe the pain I was feeling inside. But then I will try, like everybody else, to cope and leave, even though it was not very easy. But at the same time, I pushed myself. But of course, you can't push yourself for so long without, being able to find ways to get the help you need. So to be able to, you know, to feel good about yourself again. But that young 14-year-old of me went through I went through a lot of pain inside. I went through a lot of times when I would cry alone. And many times I cried alone, but I and sometimes I couldn't I didn't like myself. I didn't like my body. So already my body was violated, and I didn't like, I was disconnected with my body. So, and I felt like I was, um, I was not connected with my body anymore. So I wanted to be far away from inside of myself and to think about it. I want to run away from everything that I was feeling inside, but everything was living within me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, That's right. It's not just the psychological trauma,
Yeah.
but your physical body has been
Yeah.
traumatized, and those memories are now stored on a cellular level. Do you
Mhm.
recall? And again, you probably didn't have these words back then. Were you sort of dissociating? Were you
Mhm.
sort of like spacey and foggy, and that's what you mean by kind of disconnected?
Mhm.
Did you withdraw?
Yes. In
Okay.
those times, I didn't have a language for anything that I was going through,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand, how to describe everything that I was going through inside. But I felt this, yeah, definitely. I felt like dissociated, disconnected with myself, and I didn't want to even feel like I want to pay attention to my body. You go through those things that you don't want to, like your body, you want to because a lot of things were triggering me. Like
Mhm.
what if I hear, for instance, a conversation of someone talking about rape or any image, because throughout the country a lot of women have gone through that. So, and sometimes you could hear a conversation, or you could hear even the way someone might describe a person who was raped. That, oh, that person was raped. They're not, like they're no longer, somehow it's a way of they describe a woman, that you are no longer as a woman anymore. Those conversation people will talk about, even though you never spoke about it, but you get triggered. You hear all those conversation around you. So when everybody's saying, oh, we hear this woman have been raped, or this one, like the conversation that somehow they're, how people are, they can talk about what they have heard around what happened to a person. So you hear, every time I used to hear those conversations, used to make me feel like sad and sick inside of me. And at the same time, I'll feel like they know me, like as if they know what happened to me, but even though no one knew, around that time, what happened to me, except those who around me, my mom, who knew what happened to me. But it was a lot. Everything somehow affected me. So everything kind of triggered, everything that I was feeling inside. I had a lot of anxiety inside of my body. And at that time, I didn't have the language of talking about anxiety.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I felt a lot in my body. So that I was fighting too much, because every day something reminded me. Not every day passed without even having anything that would trigger me, or I would think about it. So it was my teenage life, even up to my young adult life, it was a lot to carry in my body. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is, yeah, that is. Yeah,
Mhm.
it can be overwhelming to your neurological system. And I think you just kind of mentioned it, but I read, and I can test the accuracy of this
Mhm.
with you. But
Yeah.
culturally, for example, like women that were raped might have been called like the killer's wife,
Mhm.
or some phrase like that. So if that's accurate culturally, right? And I read that um, what would happen is a lot of the women went deeper into silence because there was almost like they were being socially cast out and
Mhm.
rejected. Is that sort of what you meant?
Yeah. Because of the stigma, it was a stigma around rape. If you were a woman who was raped, everybody knows what happened, or the people around you, your family, or anybody else. Of course, you're being treated differently, and sometimes if you were a young woman, maybe no man would just want to, you know, to marry you, or if you were married, or somehow you were raped, and then so you go through a lot in your marriage, because already you go through what they call victim blaming. So at the same time, so it's I don't know if that's the right term to use, but at the same time, you're the one who is suffering more than a perpetrator. Of course, they know you know, the most heinous crime and all that. But at the same time, as a woman, you're the one who is suffering more because you don't seem to be like everyone else, any other regular woman anymore because of what happened to you. So treating you with empathy, it depends on the families. Not everybody was being treated with empathy at the time in the early stages of life. So maybe, yeah, later on, gradually, people were able to understand that you need to be kind, you need to, you know, to be careful in the way you treat a person who have gone through that. But stigma around rape really made a lot of women keep silent about what they have gone through. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see why they would, because it's a
Mhm.
second traumatization, you know, they're being
Yeah.
victimized a
Yeah.
second
We're
time.
victimized. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
And victim blaming, I think that's the right language too, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
It's, you know,
Yeah.
what did
Be-
you do?
and you become more re-traumatized, and which can lead to all kinds of, painful things you can do to yourself. So, and people cope differently. Some people are able to, to cope the way I coped because I never done anything harmful to myself, even though I was going through a lot of pain inside. Even maybe my coping mechanisms were not as dangerous to myself. But some people can, people are different. I always say have empathy to however person, deal with their trauma, you need to have empathy. Not everybody deal with their trauma the same way. So just to have empathy, and it's more important so than judging how a person is dealing with their trauma because we're all different. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, we don't even know how many women were raped that
Mhm.
might have also had child sexual abuse,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and so we don't know the history uh,
Mhm.
of every person. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of women keep this with themselves, and not there are so many women who didn't come forward even until now, 30 years later.
Mm.
So many women keep this. When I wrote my story, when I started speaking about what happened to me, there are some of them who told me what they have gone through, but they never shared with anyone else. So they wrote to me, they spoke to me, privately, and but they would, many of them might not even be able to share with anyone else. Just they share that with me because they know I spoke about it. But a lot of them, it's not easy to speak because it's not easy thing to talk about for a lot of women. So, and but at the same time, for me, what I encourage a person is to find a way to seek help because what we have gone through is extreme. At least find somebody to talk to, a therapist, which is something that we're encouraging. Mental health, really, you need to take care of yourself. So and make sure you speak to somebody so that you can begin your healing journey. So for me, if I didn't go to therapy, I don't think I would have been able to even be able to be strong enough to talk about it. But at the same time, I feel like it's more, for me, it's my duty to encourage fellow survivors to do the same thing. So I mean, in therapy also, people are starting to learn more about therapy, but before it was not something that people were accustomed to hearing more. So, and for me, when I started my journey of talking about it and, sharing about it, that 14-year-old girl that I always say that I separated with for so many years, the happy girl. There was a happy girl, 14-year-old, but then I was living, I feel like I was away from her. I separated from her when the genocide started. So I separated from that happy 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
But when I started my healing journey and starting a little bit to talk about it, going inside and get to love myself and my body again, because therapy taught me how to love my body. And gradually I was able to connect a little bit again, with that 14-year-old. And I feel like that happy 14-year-old girl consoled me. She came back to console me. I feel like to kind of like feel like now I'm there for you. So even though you have gone through all the pain and the sufferings, but I don't know, that's how I describe it. I feel like now she came back again to kind of be with me. I feel like she's with me now, consoling me, comforting me.
I felt that in my heart. So there, I think
Yeah.
how I would put it is like you self-abandoned, because
Yeah.
that 14-year-old girl
Mhm.
was so terrified and so full of shame,
Mhm.
and um you had to, it's like you abandoned her. You had to abandon her. You had to separate from her because the pain was too much. But as you went through your healing journey, you rediscovered her, and you rediscovered some joy or her light, and sort
Yeah.
of re-merged back with her. You kind of
Mhm.
reclaimed her in a way.
Yeah.
Came back
Yeah.
together. Yeah,
Yeah.
where you're like sort of almost one again.
Mhm.
The trauma is fragmenting. It's another way that we talk about it. It fragmented you, and then you had to collect all the pieces and sort of come back together.
Mm. Oh, that's beautifully said. Yeah. No, and when I started feeling that, it has taken me many years to be able to feel that feeling and be able to find the words to describe what I was feeling. Because I remember when I think it has taken me more than 15, 20 years to be able to start feeling like now my body, I can love my body and have that feeling of connecting again with that girl.
Yeah, it's a
That
long,
is
it is a
good.
long journey. It's
It's
rewarding though that you got there.
yeah.
Did you
Mhm.
notice, you know, I think one message I would love for listeners or watchers to understand is that rape is such an intense psychological assault, is that it really, I mean, I'm speaking again as a survivor and a therapist. I mean, it changes people for the rest of their life, in the sense that sometimes you think you're over it, but then something triggers you out of nowhere. Have you had that happen even 15, 20 years later, where you're like, I've got this, I'm
Mhm.
talking about it now, I wrote my book,
Mhm.
it's been a long time, but then just something happens and it kind of triggers you?
Yes, I've had those moments. Who knows, maybe again, who knows, anytime it can happen. So I've had moments when I heard things that triggered me, and but maybe probably not to the extreme of how I felt before, but they will make me feel unease and uncomfortable, and especially when I hear sexual assault happening to others, or if I'm hearing somebody saying something to dehumanize a sexual assault survivor. Because I've heard, let me give you an example. In Rwanda, the way sometimes when people talk about rape, and they always feel like those who were raped are the ones who were raped in the way it happened to me, with a beat and kind of like physical, with a lot of you know but I remember I was having sharing a story to a person, to someone who was raped, but not necessarily exactly how it happened to me, because there are women who were raped in a way that they were hidden by people who didn't commit the genocide. And the person will keep you in their home and saying, well, if you go outside, the killers will kill you. So you have no choice. So you have to be with me then. So, and being with that person, you have to accept doing anything with that person. So to me, And that's another form of rape that happened in the genocide. And because you could not go outside, and the person would say, okay, if you want to just go, they will kill you. But then because you don't want to be killed, you stay there. And the person will do whatever they want to you, rape you. To me, I call it a rape. When I was having a conversation with a person about other types of rape that have happened to women, and the person was like, maybe that person wanted that to happen. Maybe she wanted it too. And that triggered me to even hear that. That really made me like, like very, like, I couldn't describe what I felt inside my body. Even to hear a person say, oh, maybe that person wanted it too. Just because it didn't happen in the way probably it happened to others, but those kind of things really trigger me, especially when a person will say things to dehumanize or to minimize or to kind of make make a comments. Like if some comments, we all hear those comments and they will trigger me. So definitely they will make me feel not good. Like as I just mentioned, you see, you hear kind even now I felt it, like you feel,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It triggered me too. Like, I felt angry,
Yeah.
listening to that made me really angry.
Mhm.
And that's an incredibly conflicting situation. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm grateful that you're giving me a place where you're
Mhm.
telling me that you're going to keep me safe, but
Mhm.
the trade-off is now you're making me feel unsafe
Mhm.
because you're raping me and forcing yourself upon me, but I need to allow it because of survival. Because,
Yeah.
so it's like that's a horrible situation to be in. And I
Mhm.
also could relate because um, when I was raped, my rapist kept telling me, I love you, I love you. And I just turned 17 and I was so confused. So when I've also told people my story and I've
Mm.
had somebody say to me, well,
Mm.
oh,
Mm.
well then that's not really late rape because he loved you. And I was like,
Mm.
but and that's very triggering for me because I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I didn't love him and I didn't consent. None of it was consensual
Yeah.
and it was somewhat violent. So I'm
Mm.
like, so that's the same trigger, right? So I
Yeah.
could actually feel that when you shared that story.
Mhm. Mhm.
Again, I hope when people listen to this, they understand that
Yeah.
it's all rape, all of
It's
it.
great.
It's rape.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm. If somebody, do something that you're not consent, it's not consensual, it's rape. To me, it's rape. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
even if there's alcohol's involved, right? Because it's
Yeah.
really
Even, yeah.
controversial too, where
Mhm. Mhm.
I know you know this when you talked about victim blaming.
Yeah.
If there's a person that's consumed a lot of alcohol,
Mhm.
and I actually did a video on this on Instagram the other day about how some people fight because that's the safest thing for them to do during a rape. Some people
Mhm.
flee,
Mhm.
which maybe is not always the smartest thing because then the rapist will chase. That can elicit a chase, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Sometimes uncontrollably
Mhm.
person's body has tonic immobility and
Yeah.
they can't their
Mhm.
breathing becomes labored, sometimes the
Mhm.
eyes shut down,
Mhm.
can't move your muscles. It's rape induced paralysis.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you can't fight and you can't flee because you're so filled with terror. So
Mm.
there's
Mhm.
victim blaming with that. Well, why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you run
Yeah.
away? Or alcohol, right? If a woman did not give any consent, but she was drunk, oh,
Mhm.
well, it's her fault because she was drunk, right? So I hope we can break down a lot of this stigma.
The same, yeah. Or you were dressed a certain way, you made a person feel, yeah, because you caused it. Hearing things like that, it's really, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like you were dressed so sexy.
Mhm.
And you brought it on yourself because look how you
Yeah,
dressed. Right.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad we need to definitely, talk more about that, how it can make a person, re-traumatized And it's important to make sure that, you know, the stigma around rape really go away. So hopefully it can go away, and I don't know, but
Hey, we're trying. We're doing our part right now. We're trying. We're
yeah,
trying. We're
yeah,
trying.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you this too. Have you ever had an opportunity to speak to any of the perpetrators of the violence, of the rape, of the murderers, the rapists?
You know, I guess for me, I've never had a chance to maybe to speak to uh, those who murdered some of my family members. But my mom, as you can see in the book, my mom was able to, you know, to meet the person who murdered my brothers. But for me, actually, the person who raped me during the genocide, I first see him in a prison. So, which is also something I write in my book, how it happened. And I was still young, I was still a teenager at the same time, you know, very traumatizing too, to even look at him and face him. I didn't talk to him, but I was very traumatized even to face him, because it was still early on in my, you know, not too long ago, a few years later after the genocide, was very few years later after the genocide. So, and to face him in prison was very uncomfortable. And I didn't know, to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. I was being helped. Thank God for those who helped, my mother and me. But for me, myself, I don't think I would have been able to do that. I don't think I would have been able to even look, you know, face him. But at the same time, when I later on, it helped me to feel like at least he's in prison, which it was a little bit of help, but not as good, but a little bit of help. But I didn't talk to him because I don't think it was going to be easy to talk. And the people who found him actually where he was in prison, they took a photo, the person, to make sure they, you know, my mom knows, you know, they found him. The person took a photo with him to make sure in prison that to show they found him, so that they can make us know where he is. I purposely didn't put that photo in the book.
You
It's
didn't what?
I purposely didn't put that photo in the book
Oh.
of the person who was, yeah. So, but but the photo is I put it somewhere. So, yeah,
Did it make you feel a tiny bit safer that he was in prison?
a little bit, yeah, a tiny safer, yeah. It was more of just a tiny face, yeah, safer, that like you mentioned. So, but other than that, I had to go through trauma and pain and suffering later on for, you know, in my life. But
Yeah.
but at this, but I became among the few who was able to face a rape, you know, someone who raped you during the genocide like that. So I'm probably among the few who was able to face them like that. So
Have that opportunity.
yeah, among the few. Probably we're still the few of us. Yeah,
Yeah. Have you
yeah.
been back to Rwanda
Not
recently?
yet, but soon we are going together.
Ah, yes, yes. Yeah, I would love that. How long has it been that you've been there?
Since I came, I never went back yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, now I gotta ask why. Is it because it's too triggering for you or
I had to go through my healing journey, and I really needed to take care of me first. So yeah, I need to, psychologically, emotionally, it was not, I was not ready. Physically it's fine,
okay.
but emotionally, psychologically, I was not ready to um to 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 be there. So yeah.
But you
But
think
then
you're
I had to do the work on me first. So yeah, in order for me to be there, so I had to do the work on me, so that whenever I'm there, I'm okay. So I'm fully present and comfortable. So But other than that, physically, it's fine. You know, perfectly fine. It's a beautiful place to be. It's a beautiful country. So many great things. But for us, for me personally, I needed to work on me first.
Well, well,
Yeah,
that's important that you prioritized your own
yeah, yeah.
recovery
But
from all
but
this.
but I think people are different. Yeah, you know, the way they cope. For me, I always wanted to, since I started therapy, I wanted to be able to you know, understood the importance of taking care of your inner world. That's how I talk about it, your inner world. So
Yes, yeah.
because this is the only place I have, you know, I live with every day. So, and I needed to, you know, take care of my home, inside of myself, my home.
Oh, you have a 14-year-old girl that was
Yeah,
living inside of you that was
yeah. Mhm,
terrified and
yeah,
traumatized and
mhm.
didn't feel safe. So it's like you have to build up that adult part of you,
Exactly.
right? And to be able
Yeah,
to like make sure that you can provide, make sure that she's safe. And if she's
yeah,
saying, "Hey, I'm not ready yet. This
yes,
is overwhelming me. My
yeah,
neurological system is feeling hijacked," right?
yeah.
Then it's you gotta wait. Do you feel like you've arrived at that place now? Are you in a place
Mhm.
inside that you could go back?
Yes, I'm there now. So I'm in a place where I can go again and comfortable and I feel like I needed I started feeling like now there's someone who need my comfort too. You know, like another fellow survivor. Because I speak to them a lot, so many of them, I feel like I can now I have something to offer inside now. So
Mhm.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
eager
So
to
to
eager to
a
go
fellow
back.
survivor. Yeah, if I go back. Yeah. So
Yeah.
my presence, you know, to be present because I like when I found the importance of someone who become present in your life, who gives you the time to listen with a kind heart, you know, a kind, you know, to create a safe space for you. So I really value safe space. If someone create a safe space for you, you are able to come back home. You know, come back home. It's
You can. No,
yeah.
that's
So
beautiful.
I feel like now I'm in a place where I can create that safe space for others, my fellow survivors. And I've been trying to do that. Even when I was still working on myself, I feel like I needed to, you know, to create that safe space for others to feel, you know, to be able to hold each other, you know, hold them to get to get back to their, you know, to themselves and love themselves. So yeah.
Right, that 14-year-old girl
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
able to hold a safe space for anyone until she felt safe. And
Yeah,
now
until she face, yeah,
you and
exactly.
her are a good team and you're
Mhm.
back together again. Now that you feel safe, now you can create that safe space for
Mm.
others. And then we can sort of all hold each other and everybody can
Hold
be,
each other.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's what you do. You're a survivor, you create a safe space, you're creating a safe space for everyone around you. So I think we need to hold each other, you know,
That's cool.
carry each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I know we're up on like an hour, but I wanted to, if you don't mind, just a few more minutes.
Mhm.
A lot of your story is, I think, it's just inspirational and courage. Um, is there any lessons or any words of, you know, that you could
Leave.
part on us? Yes, leave us.
You know, one of the things that I do every day, I try to, you know, one of the thing I realize when you do the work within yourself, you starting becoming comfortable being with yourself. So, which was one of the thing that I struggled many years to, but now I'm able to be with myself, not worrying about, you know, what I'm going to see. So now I'm happy sitting with myself and being in silence alone. I love being in silence, taking moments to be in silence. So meditate, which meditation was one of the things that also helped. I like to take a moment to meditate, and I used to be worried about what I was seeing inside of myself, but now I like going back inside of myself and being tuned of everything that I'm feeling inside. So and and I feel like when you are, I heard a quote, somebody, you're alone if you don't like the person you're alone with. So I heard this quote from somebody, saying it's, I think it's Dr. Wayne Dyer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He once said, you're alone if you don't like the person you're alone with. Now I feel, I don't feel alone. So because I feel, I feel like the person I am with now, I can be with that person. I can be with me now without being worried of what I'm going to see inside of myself. So one of the things that I probably can tell people, take care of your inner world, because it's the only place that you live with every day. No other place, this is the place you live with every day of your life. Take care of your inner world. Take care of your home. Take care of your home and make it, comfortable for you. And another thing is, which is my mantra that I live with, no matter what horrible circumstances you may face in your life, never lose hope. For losing hope is the beginning of your own self-defeat. So that's my mantra that I want to live with you.
Beautiful. I
Thank
love that. Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, what are you doing? Are you speaking now, or how can people find you if they wanted to connect with you?
So you can go on my website, www.consolee.org. That's what we have, .org. And my social media, you can also find me on Instagram, what do you call it, X, Twitter X. But if you go on my website, you will see all of them. So, and then the book is on Amazon. You can find the book on Amazon. And then I can be reached for anybody who wants to reach out to me through my website and my social media. So yeah.
People can reach you definitely.
Yeah.
I
Thank
wanted to
you.
say one thing real quick. When you just said about keeping a happy home inside,
Mhm.
two things to that I've learned. This is my little wisdom to add to that is live an honest life.
Yeah.
Because what I've learned is when people live a life and they're lying or they're not just following the rules of society or hatred,
Mhm.
hating others, judging on others,
Mhm.
um, it's actually pollutes your own inner world.
Yeah.
So, if you, and it creates a lot of inner conflict, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I think that's just a nice way to keep everything really clean or pure inside.
Exactly.
Yeah, love, honesty,
Mhm.
all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love, 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 love. And love heals. And love
yeah,
heals.
it
Yeah.
does. Right.
Mhm.
It starts here
Yeah.
inside. We love ourselves, and then we can bring that love out into the world. So,
Yeah, exactly. You give
mm,
what you have. So
yeah.
it's important to take care of yeah, you're right, your inner world and love, have love and empathy, compassion, and everything good. You're right, absolutely right. Yeah. And
Well,
you give it to the world.
we just give it out to the world. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And yes, I would go back to Rwanda anytime if you want to go back.
Please, yes. We'll go
Seriously, I
together,
loved it.
definitely. And
Loved
then
it.
we go to my village
Yep.
and we'll have a good time. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here today and
Yeah.
sharing your message, your story. I hope someone listening or watching it impacted them in a positive way, your courage, your inspiration. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you for who you are and everything that you do in the world.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure talking to you.
You know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Mm.